With the Lantern Rite Festival coming ever closer, today I wanted to talk about the Prosperous Partnership, where we get to invite a 4-star leeway character of our choice, and which one of these you should consider getting and why. I'm going to go ahead and say that if there's any of these characters you are missing, they're all very solid at C0, so if you want to finish off the collection, go ahead. But if you have them all, and you're looking for what constellations are worth picking up, that's what I plan to be breaking down. Before we get any further into the video, I'd like to say thank you for all the support I've gotten, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Leaving a like on the video will help me out a ton. Okay, so first off, we have Xiangling, which is no stranger to popular teams, and Xiangling can be played as your main DPS, or more support, which is her more popular role. Xiangling C1. Opponents hit by Goba's attacks have their pyro resistance reduced by 15% for 6 seconds. This constellation is very good for her personal damage and very good for when used with a pyro main DPS. Xiangling's Constellation 2 adds an explosion at the end of her normal attack sequence that will deal 75% of Xiangling's attack as an AoE pyro damage, which is only really good for main DPS Xiangling, because as support Xiangling, you'll never really be using this. Xiangling's Constellation 4 increases Pyronado's duration by 40%, and this constellation is absolutely massive for her. And if you're close to this, then this should be the surefire winner of grabbing, especially if you use her often. Her C6 is also a very big power spike, especially when paired with Pyro DPS, because for the duration of Pyronado, all party members receive a 15% pyro damage bonus. So overall, C1, C4, and C6 are her better constellations that if you don't have, it's a very good pickup. Moving on to Beidou. Beidou's Constellation 1 adds a shield to when you cast your burst, which scales up to a maximum of 16% of Beidou's max HP for 15 seconds, which is nice, giving her the utility of being a shield support on top of her damage. Beidou C2 lets her burst jump to 2 additional targets, which just makes her better at AoE. Her C4 is only good for main DPS Beidou, which she only gains 20% electro damage for 10 seconds when being attacked, which is okay, but nothing too insane. Her C6, however, does reduce the electro resistance of surrounding enemies by 15%, which is amazing for her personal damage and for any other electro characters on your team. Overall, her C1, C2, and C6 are all worth going for if you're close to them. Xingqiu's C1 adds an additional sword, which is really nice because it's extra damage reduction, healing, and extra damage in his burst. Overall pretty good. His Constellation 2, when paired with Tartaglia, is also insane, since his burst will have an extra 3 seconds added to its duration, and it will reduce the hydro resistance of enemies hit by his swords by 15% for 4 seconds. Overall, a really great one to grab, especially if you play Tartaglia. His Constellation 4 lets his skill deal more damage when he's in his burst, which is nice for him to have some more personal damage, but overall not a must-have. And Xingqiu's C6 increases the damage of every 3rd sword hit and generates 3 energy for Xingqiu, overall being a pretty good pickup. So following the same trend so far, Xingqiu's C1, C2, and C6 are all great pickups. Ninghuang was my first main in Genshin Impact, which is just a fun fact. But Ninghuang's C1 just adds AoE to her normal attacks, which is nice, but not insane. Her C2 is something that honestly feels pretty necessary for her kit, since when Jade Screen is shattered, its cooldown is reset, and it's going to occur every 6 seconds. But this also counts when you use her Elemental Burst, and can set up some really great burst combos with Ning, and is a really great pickup. Her C4 is pretty useless, it just increases elemental resistance by 10% when near her Jade Screen. And Ninghuang's biggest power spike by far is her Constellation 6. After using her burst, she gains 7 star Jades, which is insane and makes her feel more like a 5-star DPS and is an insane pickup. Overall for Ning, her C2 and C6 are the pickups that I would suggest you get if you're close to them. For Chongyun, his C1 will release 3 Ice Blades at the end of his attack sequence that each deal 50% of his attack as cryo damage to everything in their path, which is good for main DPS Chongyun, but not ever used for support Chongyun. His C2, while in his skill Frost Field, characters' elemental skills and elemental bursts have their cooldowns decreased by 15%, which is honestly really nice. His Constellation 4 generates 1 energy every time he hits something affected by cryo, which only happens once every 2 seconds. For DPS Chongyun, this is okay. For support, this is useless. As for C6, however, his burst does more damage to enemies with lower HP than Chongyun, and also gives him an additional sword to his burst, which overall just brings his burst support up by a lot of damage, making it a lot better. Overall, his C2 and his C6 are worth the pickup if you're close. Now for my girl Xenon. Xenon C1 gives her normal and charge attacks 12% attack speed when she crits, which is okay for DPS Xenon. Her C2 increases her burst crit rate by 100% and will grant her a level 3 shield when cast, which is great for burst support Xenon. C4 adds a 15% physical reduction for enemies hit by the swing for 12 seconds, which is great for Eula and Razor comps. Her C6 reduces the stamina cost for charge attacks by 30% and increases her damage of her charge attacks with an attack bonus equal to 50% of her defense, which is decent for main DPS Xenon. Overall, just her C4 is really worth the pickup if you plan to use her as a support. For the new kid on the block, Yon, her C1 is nice. It just decreases your skills cooldown by 18%, which is just nice quality of life. Her C2 increases normal attack damage by 15% for 12 seconds after you cast her burst, which is really great for normal attack carries. Yunjin C4 increases her defense by 20% for 12 seconds whenever Yunjin triggers a crystallize, and since all of her buffs scale off defense, this is a really solid constellation to pick up. Her C6 is where Yunjin becomes a lot more insane, since she will additionally give 12% attack speed to characters that have her burst buff on them. Overall, all of her constellations C1, C2, C4, and C6 are all great pickups. Last but not least, we have Yon Faye. Her constellation 1 adds an additional 10% stamina reduction to the cost of her charge attacks and increases resistance to interruption during her charge attacks, which is nice quality of life. Her C2 increases her charge attack crit rate by 20% against opponents below 50% HP, which is okay. Her C4 adds a shield to her burst that absorbs up to 45% of Yon Faye's max HP for 12 seconds, which lets her go from a DPS to a potential shield support, which is really nice because it adds flexibility, and when paired with the prototype Amber, allows her to also be technically a healer. Yon Faye's C6 increases your maximum Scarlet Seals by 1, which is just nice quality of life for her overall. Overall, her only go for constellations, in my opinion, is just her C4. Alright guys, I hope this video helped you out with deciding what 4-star you're going to pick up during the Lantern Rite event. Leave in the comments who you're getting and why you're getting them. Thanks for watching guys, and if you haven't subbed to the channel yet, please consider doing so, and leaving a like on the video will help me out a lot. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one.